Imagine if 90 elephants sat on your chest at once. That's the pressure at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. It's a place so hostile that fish grow lanterns out of their heads. Crabs look like they escaped from horror movies. And water itself behaves like molten lead. And yet, while you're doom-scrolling Twitter and debating pineapple on pizza, China is sending entire robot fleets into Poseidon's basement. Yes, while Americans binge Netflix crime dramas, Beijing is busy building actual crime scenes 11 kilometers below sea level. Here's the punchline nobody wants to hear. This isn't about glowing jellyfish or discovering the next SpongeBob. It's about who controls your internet, your batteries, and maybe your next paycheck. The seabed is stuffed with polymetallic nodules, ugly rocks that just happen to be filled with cobalt, nickel, and rare earths. Without them, your iPhone is a paperweight and Tesla is a lawn ornament. But the real kicker? Washington is still snoring. While China's engineers deploy robotic harvesters and map trenches like it's Minecraft with unlimited resources, the US is slashing ocean research budgets like a teenager canceling a gym membership. The question isn't whether China is colonizing the seabed. It's whether anyone in Washington even remembers the ocean exists. Mystery science versus geopolitical reality. The ocean isn't just water until it stops. It's a 5-layer cake of nightmares. At the top, the photic zone, where sunlight filters down just enough for plankton to party. Dive deeper into the twilight zone, and you find fish with headlights, fangs, and eyes bigger than their brains. Go further into the midnight zone, and it's pitch black, colder than your ex's heart. And pressure so strong it would crush a submarine like a beer can. Sounds like science fiction, right? Except here's the twist. The real alien lurking down there isn't bioluminescent. It's political. Because the most dominant creature in the abyss isn't an anglerfish. It's the Chinese Communist Party, armed not with teeth but with contracts, cash, and a deep-sea playbook no one else bothered to write. While marine biologists study shrimp that glow in the dark, Beijing is busy asking a bigger question. How do we turn this alien world into the next Silk Road? Spoiler, they're already halfway there. In 2021, China secured 5 exploration contracts from the International Seabed Authority, the US. 0, because it still hasn't ratified the law of the Sea Treaty. Chinese subs like the Fenduji can dive past 10,000 meters, carrying 3 humans into the trench. That's not curiosity. That's capability. State-owned firms are running seabed mapping like a military campaign, complete with satellite coordination and robotic fleets. If the Twilight Zone belongs to weird fish, who do you think owns the Midnight Zone? Spoiler, it's not the country currently defunding marine science. China's obsession. China doesn't do one-off expeditions. They build assembly lines. Think of it like a McDonald's of submarines. Repeatable, scalable, and always open for business. Every dive is not just a mission, it's a franchise. Collect the data, refine the tech, deploy the next fleet. Meanwhile, America is debating whether NASA should put humans back on the moon, while Beijing is already installing turnstiles at the bottom of the Pacific. Washington cuts research budgets because missiles get the headlines. Beijing buys scientists, and lots of them. The pattern is obvious. In the last decade, China has launched dozens of crewed and robotic dives, each time testing better tech. Universities like Shanghai Jiao Tong now pump out specialists in ocean robotics, as if they were iPhone models. State-owned firms invest billions into undersea mapping projects, while the US Office of Ocean Exploration scrapes together change from the couch cushions. It's not exploration, it's obsession. China isn't asking, can we reach the seabed? They're asking, how do we stay there? In the resources of the abyss, forget SpongeBob. What waits down there isn't a pineapple under the sea. It's the next oil rush wrapped in squid ink. The abyss is littered with polymetallic nodules, those ugly potato-shaped rocks stuffed with cobalt, nickel, and manganese. Translation: every electric car battery, missile guidance system, and smartphone screen quietly whispers, "Thank you, seabed." And that's not all. Deep vents spew out frozen methane hydrates, basically ice that burns. Imagine a gas station at the bottom of the ocean, where the pumps look like stalactites. Japan once tested extracting it in 2013. China? They ran 6 successful production tests by 2017. They don't see weird ice. They see dollar signs and power grids. Here's the irony. The future of clean energy may come from something that looks like whale poop frozen in a snow cone. And China is already locking down the concession stand. Numbers don't lie. The seabed could hold 21 billion tons of mineral nodules. Just one mining zone in the Clarion-Clipperton fracture zone might contain 6 times more cobalt than all known reserves on land. China has already invested billions in exploration tech, while the US is still debating whether it should even join the treaty that governs it. Mining and destruction picture the process. Giant robotic vacuum cleaners crawling across the ocean floor, sucking up mud like toddlers with juice boxes. Only difference? This mud is millions of years old and holds the minerals of the future. It sounds efficient, until you realize it's basically like taking a Dyson to the Louvre. The seabed is a fragile ecosystem that evolved slower than your grandma's Wi-Fi, and now industrial suction hoses are flattening it in the name of cheaper iPhones. China's state-owned giants already tested these machines, turning vast swaths of seabed into lunar parking lots. Sediment clouds can smother entire regions, erasing species scientists didn't even get the chance to name. But hey, if the next Tesla battery drops 3% in cost, who's complaining? Here's the cruel irony. While NGOs hold conferences on protecting biodiversity, China holds prototypes that can strip mine the abyss like it's a Walmart clearance aisle. And the United States? Still cutting ribbons at community aquariums. Some facts worth chewing on. Single mining operation could disturb up to 800 square kilometers of seabed per year. Recovery of these ecosystems could take millennia, if ever. Yet the International Seabed Authority has already drafted regulations that lean heavily in favor of whoever shows up with the most hardware. Spoiler, that's China. Invisible war, submarine cables. Here's the plot twist. The real treasure of the seabed isn't shiny rocks. It's the spaghetti of undersea cables carrying 99% of global internet traffic. Your memes, your bank transfers, your late-night secrets with that friend in another time zone. All of it runs through wires as thin as a garden hose, lying vulnerable on the ocean floor. And guess who's already building the scissors? China. Their research vessels and fishing trawlers, read spy ships, can map, tap, and cut those lines like noodles in a Beijing kitchen. Think about it. One well-placed robot, and an entire country's connection goes dark faster than your Wi-Fi during a thunderstorm. The US Navy knows this, of course, but instead of dominating cable security, America is stuck playing whack-a-mole, while China invests in deep-sea drones capable of sabotage and repair. Washington builds firewalls. Beijing is eyeballing the actual wires. Cold War flashback? Not quite. At least in the old days, you could hear the missile silos warming up. In this war, the first shot could be the silence of your Zoom call freezing mid-sentence. Hard data. More than 450 submarine cables carry the world's data, totaling over 1.4 million kilometers. A single cable break can cost $400 million a day in lost revenue for affected economies. Chinese firms like Huawei, Marine have laid over 100,000 kilometers of these lines, giving Beijing both infrastructure and backdoor access. The future underwater bases. If you thought submarines were the final boss, think again. Beijing's planners are sketching something bolder, permanent underwater bases at depths of 2,000 meters. Picture the International Space Station, but swap out the astronauts for engineers in pressure suits and the view of Earth for glow-in-the-dark shrimp. These aren't sci-fi doodles. In 2018, Chinese scientists openly discussed a manned seabed station, designed to operate as both a research hub and, let's be honest, a military outpost, with better camouflage than anything on land. Why build another aircraft carrier when you can park an entire fortress under the ocean, invisible to satellites? Meanwhile, the US is, what? Building luxury cruise ships, or maybe cutting another oceanography budget line. Washington still sees the deep sea as a playground for nerds and Discovery Channel specials, while Beijing treats it like the next chapter of the Belt and Road Initiative. Only this time, the road is paved in mud and manganese. Numbers to anchor this. China's Hadal Station project aims for 2,000 plus meters depth with human occupancy. The budget estimates floated around 1.1 billion USD for development. Military analysts note these bases could double as platforms for undersea drones and cable intercept missions. The contrast couldn't be starker. One side is dreaming in abyssal blueprints. The other is still arguing about whether mermaids count as cultural appropriation. The talent race. Here's the part that stings. It's not just about machines, it's about brains. China is running a scholarship and recruitment campaign so aggressive, it makes Silicon Valley look like a lemonade stand. Bright young scientists from across Asia, Africa, and even the West are being scooped up with funding, labs, and the promise of prestige. While Chinese students are designing the next generation of abyssal robots, what's America producing? TikTok influencers dancing in kitchen aprons. It's almost poetic. One side builds drones to mine the ocean, the other builds audiences by eating detergent pods. And it's not by accident. The Chinese government pours billions into marine engineering programs, robotics, and undersea warfare studies. They treat the deep ocean as the classroom of the 21st century. Meanwhile, the US educational system is stuck debating whether to teach evolution, while marine science departments beg for spare change. Some sobering figures. By 2022, China graduated 4 times. More STEM PhDs than the United States. The government sponsors entire universities focused on ocean robotics and marine geology. The U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, had a 2023 budget of just $6 billion, barely enough to cover the Pentagon's coffee expenses. The message is clear. In the talent war, China is treating the seabed like Silicon Valley 2.0. The US is treating it like a field trip. The ocean was once the last place humans feared to touch, a canvas for myths about krakens and mermaids. Now it's just another square on the geopolitical chessboard, except the pieces are submarines, cables, and robotic vacuum cleaners that cost more than an aircraft carrier. China sees the seabed as its 11-kilometer deep insurance policy, a vault of minerals, a battlefield for data, and a stage to prove it can out-innovate the West in the most hostile place on Earth, the US. By contrast, is acting like an empire in denial, still pretending that dominance on land and air automatically guarantees relevance underwater. Spoiler, it doesn't. So what does that mean for you? The next war for supremacy might not look like jets dogfighting in the sky. Could be a blackout in your city because a cable snapped mysteriously. It could be the price of your phone doubling because someone else owns the minerals. Or it could just be waking up to realize the world's largest dictatorship quietly built an empire in the one place no one bothered to watch. And when you hear whispers about mermaids or sea monsters, ignore them. The real Leviathan down there is spelled in block letters, hegemony. The Cold War never ended. It just sank 11 kilometers below the surface. So here's the uncomfortable question. When the abyss becomes the new frontier, whose side of the trench would you rather live on? If you enjoyed this dive, drop a like and share it with someone who still thinks the ocean is just for whales and vacation cruises. Trust me, they need the wake-up call.